recording. All right. So if I say const my first array, how do I make an empty array? How do I do this? That is how I do this. Open, close brackets, okay? Brackets are arrays. This is an array. Can everybody see? Can everybody see in the back? There's our first array, okay? Not too bad. Arrays, you can think of sort of like strings at first. Then you will see that they're nothing like strings. So when I say that, I mean arrays have a dot length property. And we get 0, okay? There is nothing inside of this array. So what goes inside of arrays, right? Arrays can hold any form of data. It can hold one string. It can hold one number. It can hold null, undefined. It can even hold another array with a number inside of it. So instead of this empty array, what if I did console.log my first array dot length? We get 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. You can think of arrays as ordered lists, okay? Just like a string, in no way, shape, or form will you ever try to log out this string and this S will be at the beginning, right? That doesn't make any sense, right? Same thing with arrays. The first place inside of the array will always be there. And like strings as well, arrays have indexes. And like strings, the first index is the 0th index, okay? So if I say console.log my first array at 0, we get I am a string. Okay? Very, very similar to strings, right? If we were to console.log this I, we would do this string at index 0, right? Bracket 0. Correct? This is the same thing. At the 0th index, we just have this whole string. And inside of arrays, the way you separate different data types that it's holding, different values that it's holding, are commas. Not semicolons, not colons, not periods, but commas, okay? Is everybody cool with that? Any questions? So, let me show you one way how arrays are not like strings. Okay? Well, clearly they're not like strings. These are completely different, right? But let me show you one thing. If I did const my string equals hello, and then I said my string at 0 is now going to be equal to j. Okay? And then I console.log my string. Will my string be hello or jello? No, it is going to be hello. Okay? That's because primitive types are immutable. You cannot change what that value is there. You can't change the values inside of it, right? My string is always going to be, unless I change the value of my string itself, this string. You can't change the indexes and assign them to something else. Otherwise, all hell will break loose, right? What if you changed it to undefined? What if you changed it to an object? What if you changed it to an array? You just can't do that, right? These are primitive. This is a primitive value, so you cannot change it. However, if I did this, my first array at 0 is now going to be equal to false. And then I console.log my first array. Now we see false here. Who's confused? Is anybody confused by this? arrays are complex data types. That means that you can mutate them, okay? It is still the same array as always, but the value that was being held at index 0 has been reassigned to something else. We mutated that array. Now it is different, okay? And this can be said for any index. And just like, you can even do this. Instead of my first array at 0, we could do my first array at 9 is now going to be equal to false. Now you see I'm a string, 100, null, undefined, an array with 22 inside. And then we see 4 empty items. So, and then we have false. So if I console.log after here, my first array at index 7, one of the empty items, we get undefined. Just like strings. Even though we have something all the way in the 9th index, the 7th index was never defined originally. So we have undefined here. Just like if we never added this, if we put this back to 0, and then we tried to add 7, so the length of the array we don't need that string anymore. The length of the array is 5, and you try to access the 7th index, there is nothing at the 7th index, so you get undefined. Just like strings, right? Very, very different. Yeah?
So nested arrays also get included in the length of like
Yes.
the highest of the array?
Because, if you think about it, we have one thing here, 2 thing, 3 thing, 4 thing, and then this array can hold 3 things, but the length is still going to be 5 because it's still one array. Inside of the array, inside of that inner array is 3 things, but that array is still one array. So, since there is one array at the end of my first array, that counts as 1 for the length, right? Index 5, you get that array. What if I wanted to get the true, right? What if I wanted to get true out of that inner array? So, let's say to get that array, we don't know the length, so we say my first array at my first array dot length minus 1, right? Let's see what that is. It's an array. What if I did this? Then I get the true. Bracket notation stacks. Okay? Yeah?
Can you name the array that's inside the other array?
No. Sorry.
Okay.
Yeah.
Is there a limit to like how many bracket notations you can use, like with nested loops and stuff?
Well, I mean, like, if there's something there, no. So technically it could go on forever, right?
Okay.
So, but if there's nothing there, like if I try to go of 0, you're trying to access the 0th index of the value true, right? So, is this an error? No, it's just undefined, right? It's nothing, right? So, however, technically, this can go on forever. A program, like an infinite loop, if you just added an array into the 0th index and then went into that array and then added something there, like in a while loop forever, then it would just break. But it can hold as many things as you want. There is no limit.
How can we access the nested array?
Well, the nested array is like here, right? So if I say const inner array is equal to my first array at my first array dot length minus 1, and then I said console.log inner array, we get that inner array, right? So tomorrow you guys will learn more about nested arrays, okay? So I don't want to get too into them right now because there's actually a whole lecture and a whole workshop dedicated to different things with nested arrays. But just know that we can put arrays into arrays and you can go into those arrays and access the things inside of them, right? Like we went into this array of 22 true and null, which was inside a first array, and we can pull out the true by just adding another bracket, okay? Bracket notation stacks. Any questions on that? Little confusing, for sure, you know, things inside of things, but that's how it is, okay?
So as far as the bracket notation stacking, if you left that second bracket with 1 under the, we talked about all the my first array dot length minus 1.
Wait, so like,
Line 14, we turned that back to what it was, like a constant, and then added another one. What does it actually return when two nested things next?
wait, like another one like this?
Yeah.
Well, it returns undefined, right? Because what is, wait, hold on, there's something slow. It's undefined, right? Because what is of 1, right? True. It's just a value true, right? Of 0, if you remember, is 22, right?
That was a string, could you do it?
If it was a string, then yeah. If it was an array, then yeah, right? Like, think about it. This, what I'm doing right now, this whole thing, my first array at my first array dot length minus 1 is always going to be the last thing in that array, right? Do you agree? You would do the same thing to get the last character of a string, right? String at string dot length minus 1, right? So if we know that that's always the last thing in the array, and then we can basically just say that this is 22 true null, right? It is the same thing. And then it continues and says add 0 of what that thing is, right? Which is 22. So this is the same thing as just writing 22. You see? Like first it goes to the first bracket that you put, gets that value, and then it goes to another one, right? But if it's not, if it's a data type with no indexes, like if it's not a string and it's not an array, and you try to go into this, like 22 at 5, you just can't do that, right? So. Okay. Any other questions? Cool. Okay, so let me do this. All right. So console who thinks that this will say array? Wrong. I'm sorry. Sorry to throw you under the bus like that. Yes, type of array is actually an object, okay? But that's weird because type of an object, we'll talk about this on Tuesday, is also an object. So how can you tell the difference between arrays and objects, right? How do you do that? So instead of type of, well, let me leave this here for note purposes. What if I console.log? So there is a way to really tell if something is an array, and it is based off of the global array method. Okay, I mean the global array object, right? So you know how we had capital number, capital Boolean, capital string, right? So we also have capital array, and then we do dot is array. Invoke that, and you pass in whatever you want, right? And it gives you true or false, okay? So I passed in an array, so that is true. If I passed in a string, I am not an array, we get false. Easy, right? This is how you can tell something. Like, let's say somebody is passing something into your function, and you want to do one thing if it's a string or a number, but if it's an array, you want to do something completely else. But then, if you have an object, you want to do a third thing, right? So how can you tell apart the object versus the array? Array.isArray is the only way. You pass in that variable, that parameter, argument, whatever, into isArray, right? And then it will return true or false based off of if that thing is an array or not. Okay? Straightforward, right? This is, memorize this. Memorize this method, array.isArray. You might not use it too much on your own, but it is the only way to really tell if something is an array. Okay? Cool. So, oh, what the f- Oh, yeah. Whoops. So, you guys are familiar with what I'm doing, right? I'm setting something equal to an empty string, and then I'm saying plus equals hello, and I'm concatenating into that string. So we console.log new string, and we get hello, right? So that is how you add things into a string, right? Plus equals, concatenation. The string is now equal to the string before plus this new string value, or number value, whatever, yeah? Right? Nothing new here, right? So, can I do this with arrays? Let's new array equal this. And then I say new array plus equals null. And then I'll console.log new array. What will I get? Null. What does that mean? What if I plus equaled a 99? What if I plus equal a string world? This isn't what I want to do, right? That's because this is not how you concatenate things into an array, okay? This is not what you do. Plus equals is not going to work with arrays, okay? That's strings and numbers, okay? Arrays are complex. Arrays are different. Arrays can hold any type of value, right? So, to put something into arrays and to take things out of arrays, there are 4 methods that I need every single one of you to memorize now, okay? Not right now, but by the end of the day, okay? So, to do this, I'm going to do new array dot push, and I'm going to pass in 55. And then after that, I will do new array dot push 66. Now if I console.log new array, I get an array with 55 and 66, okay? Dot push takes whatever it is you put into it as an argument and pushes it into the back of the array. As you can see, first I pushed in 55, so 55 went, right? Then I pushed in 66. It goes to the end of the array. That's what push does. And you might be thinking, oh, well, push doesn't return anything, right? It just alters the array. Push does return something. I can do this, const what am I, equal to new array dot push 66. Now console.log new array, and then but I'll also console.log what am I? And I don't need this anymore. I get 2. So push actually returns something. Push returns the new length of the array after it pushes that value there. Okay? Okay? Yeah.
Can you push an array?
Yeah. You can push anything because arrays can hold anything, right? Arrays can hold any type of data. So you can push any type of data. So, how do I get things out of the array? Pop. Oh, nope. Pop. Invoked, pass nothing inside. Pop removes the thing at the end of the array. Okay? You got push that pushes things onto the back, and pop that pops the back off. Okay? Push and pop. Push and pop. Okay? Does this make sense? This is easy, right? This is more memorization, okay? This is just things that you're gonna have to get used to. So, like push, pop does return something, okay? Pop I'm console logging it, right? Pop returns 66. It pops the last thing off of the array and it returns that value, that whole value, right? Like I can do const what am I to, nope, equal to new array dot pop, right? And then if I do what am I to, let's change this to be consistent, get rid of this, get rid of that, and we get 66. We can store that element somewhere, but you are changing the original array. Okay? Yeah.
I don't understand why the function what am I gives us the length of the array rather than just returning the new array push 66.
Because push and pop are just meant for mutating arrays, right? So push returns the new length. That's just how that method works, okay? Pop returns the thing you were taking off.
The value.
Oh,
The value is that.
The value, yeah, like 66 was at the back, right? I pushed in 66. It was 55, 66. Then I pop, and now it's just an array with 55, right? But that 66 we can actually take and store into a value because pop returns that value. Usually when you're pushing things in, you wouldn't really want to store that into an array, right? I mean into a variable, right? Because usually when you push things in, like, I don't know, if you had a for loop and you were pushing things into an array over and over again, you don't really care what it is after each push, right? You just care what the array is after you're done putting things inside. So, any questions on this?
I think I have the same question. I do understand what you're saying, but were the console.log, what am I, still, why is it automatically returning the length of the array and not like new array push 66, which was 1, like index wise?
Wait, say that again? I'm sorry.
For the cons,
For this
down one below, yeah, that one that,
This one right here?
yeah.
So,
Why is it returning the length and not the 66 index wise would be?
yeah, whereas line 26.
because it doesn't return the index that the new element will be held at, it returns the new length of the array after that thing is pushed inside.
So just, oh, that's.
That's
what it is.
that's just the function. That's just what it is. Yeah.
Memorized.
These are rules.
Okay.
Yeah, you can't really change. These are built in for you by JavaScript. Okay. Usually you don't really need the return value of push. I'm seriously telling you this as a friend. Okay. However, it does returns something, and you need to know what it is because it might be useful to you at some point, okay? Also, if you were expecting it to not return something, then that could also cause problems if it actually does. So you just need to know that push returns the new length of the array, okay? Pop returns the value takeoff. It's not lost in space, right? You can get that value back. So, oh shit. So now that we're done with push and pop, we can put things in the back and take off from the back. How do we put things to the front and take out from the front? How do we do this? Okay? New array dot unshift 55. New array const see, variable naming is sometimes hard on the spot, you know? Const equals new array dot unshift of 66. So now console.log new array, and I will console.log okay? Aha! So the order is different. However, it returns the same thing as push. It returns the new length of the array. However, push pushes things onto the back, right? Unshift unshifts them into the front. Okay? Any questions on this? It's literally the same logic behind push. However, we are doing it the other way. We are not putting things onto the back of the array. We are putting things onto the front. Yeah?
For reference, what was new array before you?
Empty array. So new array is empty array, right? It's just at the top, underneath this commented code, right? New array is empty array. So I'll put this here so you guys know. New array is empty array. I unshift 55 on there, and then I unshift 66 on there. So we got 66 and then 55. Does that make sense? Do you want me to stop using numbers? Are numbers confuse you? Okay. So, after I unshift the 66, down here we know what is, right? So let me just comment this out. And what if now I wanted to remove the first thing, right?
Shift.
Nice. We do shift, okay? Shifty equals new array dot shift. Console.log shifty console.log new array. So we had 66 and 55, and then we did let shifty equal new array dot shift. So let me just go over again how this 66 is inside of this variable, right? JavaScript reads this line, it says you're declaring a variable shifty, right? Right? And we say, what is that? What is that value going to be? Okay, new array, and then it says dot shift. This is a method. Methods are functions. As you can see, we are invoking them. When you set a variable to a function invoked, JavaScript says, okay, well, we have to run this function and see what we get, okay? When we run shift on new array, this function returns the first value in the array taken out from that array. So then we have the 66 and we can store it in shifty. Okay? Yeah. If I don't assign it to shifty? Yeah, so I'm assigning this into this variable shifty to show you that it returns something, right? If I just, right? So if I just did this, wait, what the oh yeah. If I just did that, it would still remove the first element, right? The function is running, so it's getting rid of that element. However, since we didn't capture the return value of shift into a variable, that 66 is gone. It is lost forever, okay? So, to show you that this does return something, we put it in a variable, right? To help you remember, shift is called shift because if you think about it, you put this new thing at index 0, and then everything else that was in the array has to shift over one index. Right? Unshift is a bad name. There's nothing I can do about it.
So you need to make something like it the other way around, like,
Any questions on push, pop, shift, or unshift? What does push do?
Adds to the end of the array.
What does unshift do?
that's did it first.
What does pop do?
Said last.
What about unshift? No, I meant shift.
Removes the first value.
Nice. So this is just things you're going to have to remember to do, okay? But as you saw with strings, right? Like to uppercase, to lowercase, dot slice, all these methods, they look the same, right? Dot this invoke. So this syntax should not be new for you, okay? But this is how you can alter arrays, by putting things on the back, taking out from the back, putting things on the front, and taking out from the front, okay? Speaking of dot slice, speaking of slice, slice is also an array method. So if I do slice of 1, we get 2, 3, right? Because on a recap for strings, how does slice work? The first value is inclusive. So the second value, the second argument we pass in is exclusive. So we start at 1, index 1 of 1, 2, 3. So we don't start at the number 1, we start at the number 2. Let me not use numbers for this, so this doesn't confuse you guys. So let's do A, B, C, okay? So we start at index 1, which is the letter B, and that is inclusive. So that will be included into the new array, okay? And then we stop at index 2. Index 2 is the letter C. That is exclusive. The stop will not be included in the new array. As you can see, we just have an array of B. If we passed in like 5, there is no index 5, so we just go until the end. If we don't pass in anything, we get ABC, okay? Now, this is a good way to get certain parts of an array. However, it is also a way to make copies of arrays. Copies, okay? Because if you remember me saying, arrays are mutatable, right? Mutable. You can change the values inside of them. Push and pop changes the original value of the original array, right? So, slice actually makes a copy of that array. So if I did sliced array triple equal to slice demo, they look the same, but they are not the same. They are different arrays, okay? Even though they have the same values, they occupy different spaces in memory. They are different arrays, different entities, okay? Even though they possess the same numbers or letters, okay? Just like this is also false. Empty array is not equal to empty array because they are different arrays. These things cannot be treated the same as numbers or strings, okay? They are different, okay? They are more complex. They occupy different places in memory. They are stored at different places, so they are not the same.
Can you do let sliced array equals sliced demo, or do you have to use slice?
So, I mean, so back to this point, if I say let sliced array equal sliced demo, then it is true. They are the same array. But if I said sliced array at 0 is now equal to true, and then a console.log sliced array, right? Then we have, wait, what am I doing? And I have sliced array over here, then I have true BC, right? But what if I did sliced demo? That's also true BC. This we will go over on a different day, the pass by value, pass by reference lecture. We will go all about into this, but just know that if you declare an array over here, and then you set another variable equal to that variable, they are all the same array. So if I mutate this array that I thought I was cloning, I'm actually mutating both because they are one array, okay? There's two variables, but both variables point to one array. It works differently than strings and numbers, okay? This is important, very important, but I don't want to get that far into this right now. That is not the topic today, okay? That's too much for one day, but just know that, all right? And just know that empty array, triple equal empty array is false because they are different things, okay? If you have more questions on this specifically, save them. Write them down and save them, okay? Because we will go fully into this another day. Okay? But sliced is a thing. Also, let 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. No. Let nums equal this. So if I wanted to reverse this array, whoa! There's a reverse method. You can just switch the whole thing, okay? However, once I switch the whole thing, nums is actually changed for good because reverse mutates the original array. Okay? But it reverses it. And you can chain. Reverse and then reverse back. Back. All right? But like, why would you do that? Any questions before I go into slides?
If you do let nums equal nums.slice, or like let nums,
Like let new nums equal nums.slice?
yeah.
Then they will
and
be
reverse
different.
The second one, Does he make a difference? Or does
Yes,
he take-
then because slice makes a copy. So if you do let new nums nums equal to nums dot slice, and you don't pass anything inside of it. So if you don't pass anything inside to slice, you start at the beginning and go to the end. And you do nums dot, and then you do new nums dot reverse, and then you console.log nums, and then you console.log new nums. Am I doing another oh, I'm console.logging this. Let's get this out of the console. So nums is still 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. However, new nums is 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Because instead of reversing nums, we first made a copy of the array and reversed that, not damaging our original nums. Okay?
So, random question, we don't need a semicolon after the function? After the parentheses?
A semicolon?
Like a,
Like a little,
like, does that matter?
like a little.
Yeah.
So like, I don't use semicolons ever because you kind of don't need them really. But I think there's like 2 cases where you do need them that I forgot because I never ran into it before.
It still runs, but technically you're supposed to.
Well, it's not like technicality. I mean, it's all like based off personal preference. So like, where I work, my company, our company, it's not really company policy because we're kind of small, but like our standard for our code, everything needs to have semicolons because it's clean and it's how it should be. But if none of them, if I just deleted all of them one day and then that was how it was forever, nothing would change, you know? But it's fine. Like, for me, I still don't use semicolons when I write, but my text editor, I configured it so on save it formats everything and it just puts them in there where they should be, so it's fine. If you like semicolons, keep using them. If you don't like them, stop, because it doesn't matter. Okay? Any other questions? Yeah.
So if I shift push in the new nums, will it automatically put it in order? Or is it different?
What do you mean? Well, I don't get what you mean.
Or do I need to reverse it again to put it into the right place? Like if I shift a number, it will go at the beginning.
If you shift like 1,
Unshift, I'm sorry, if I unshift
so if I take off
zero,
so if I take the first number off,
unshift is to add,
unshift you put it on.
right?
So if I unshift it on,
So if I unshift the numbers 7, for instance,
okay.
will it put everything in order?
No.
So you have to reverse. Okay.
So if you unshifted a 7 into this and it was 7, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and you reversed it, it would be 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 7. The indexes and arrays don't care about the values that are actually inside of it. Like that might look wrong to you, but you put it there at index 0, you unshifted it on, and when you reverse it, reverse just switches the array. They don't care what's inside, right? So at index 0 will now be at the last index. Yeah.
Can you add things to the middle first?
Yes, with the splice method, but that's not for today. Because splice is confusing and annoying. Slides? Or more questions? More questions during slides?
Yes.
I like how that sounds. Okay. Okay. So we're going to go over what's an array, type of array, array.isArray, bracket access and bracket assignment, length, and some methods that I already went over. So what is an array? An array is a list-like data structure in JavaScript, okay? I think like every programming language has something that resembles arrays, you know? So they're called arrays in JavaScript, okay? Let numbers equals an array with 1, 2, 3. Let names equal George John Thomas. Let a variable equal a value. Let mixed bag equal 30 true, apples, null, a variable. These values inside of an array are called elements. Okay? So like element at index 0 in mixed bag is 30. Element at index 2 in names is the string Thomas. Okay? Is everybody comfortable with how this looks? I know this is new, but is everybody okay with it? Nobody really seems scared about these arrays anymore, right? It's pretty straightforward, right? You could take a value that you've been working for before, like booleans or nums or strings, and you can just put them in these brackets, and then they're there, okay? That's what arrays are, okay? They hold things in constant order. The order they go in, they will be there unless you manually change them, okay? They are ordered lists.
Sorry. So did you say before that when you reverse, the actual reverse is based on the index order, not on the value?
Yeah, on the index, not the
Ah,
value.
okay.
Like if you reverse George John Thomas, it would be Thomas John George,
So
right?
it's based on the index.
Yeah. So, the type of an array is object. I showed you this, right? Any questions? Cool. Array.isArray. As you can see, we access the global array object, right? Capital array. But instead of putting the parentheses like a boolean or string, right? We do global array dot isArray. The isArray function lives on the global array object. So we do global array dot isArray, and then you pass something into it. Returns true or false based off of if that thing is an array, okay? So yes, names is an array, so we get true. But that string, I am not an array, is not, so we get false. Does this make sense to everybody? Is this confusing at all? Thank you. Nice. It shouldn't be, right? It's not that bad. This is just like a lot of information, you know? What is this? Okay. Access elements in an array the same way you'd access a character in a string, using brackets and the index number corresponding to the position of the element inside the array. Let names equal George John Thomas, right? We've got console.log names of 0, we get George. Names of 1, we get John. Names of 2, we get Thomas. Names at 3, we get undefined. This is the same as strings, right? Except now we can access big things. Let's say we wanted to get the G in George only. How do we do that? Names, names at 0, another bracket 0. Exactly. Names at 0 at 1 would give us the E. Because those things are also indexed, right? You have the string, so why can't we get the G if we have the string already?
The bracket would be right next to the 0, right afterward, or do you need a comma?
No, it would be bracket, 0, closing bracket,
Right.
open bracket,
Open bracket.
0, closing bracket.
Oh, 0.
Just all in a line, chained off each other. Any questions? Cool. So, use brackets and the assignment operator to assign new values to index positions in an array. So let names equal George John Thomas again. So now we're saying names at 0 is Washington, names at 1 is Adams, and names at 2 is Jefferson. And you see that that changed the values inside. We are mutating the array. We are changing the array, okay? We are assigning whatever is at this variable names at index 0 is now going to be the string Washington. We don't care what was there before. We don't care if it was a number, another array, an object, false, true. Doesn't matter. It's now Washington, okay? Yeah.
So the example that you mentioned before, so if I want to get the E, right, 2 paragraphs, right, with the 1 on the last.
Yeah.
But if I want to get the actual, let's say if I don't know the character, and instead of the last zero, or I mean last one, I put in quotation that E or enter, will be fine, or?
No. So bracket notation needs to take numbers because it needs to take, it's looking for indexes, not actual character values, okay? Okay.
I apologize if you just answered this, but could you put in names 1, and just change the character?
No. I showed you this before. If I tried to like have like let string equal the string Washington, right? Let's say I did that. And then I said string at 0 is not going to be W, it's going to be an S. Washington. Okay? Can't do it. Can't do it. Because it's a string value is primitive. It's just a whole value, right? It's not complex like arrays that hold different things. That you can just take that out and put something else in there. Whereas a string, you just can't do it. Okay? All right. So, remember in an earlier lecture we said only complex types can be mutated? Change the elements in an array is an example of mutating a value. We cannot mutate strings in the same way. Let array brace, let string brace. Array at 0 equals G, string 0 equals G. As you can see, the array has been changed, but the string remains braced, because you just cannot do that, okay? You cannot mutate primitive values. Strings are primitive values. These are the laws of JavaScript. You just can't do that, okay? But you can do that with arrays. Any questions?
Can function be as an element in the array?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Arrays can hold anything, including functions. Don't worry about that right now, though, okay? Yeah, not right now. So arrays like strings have a length property. Names.length equals 3. Is anybody confused by this? Very straightforward, right? And very similar to strings. Push. So dot push is a method specific to arrays. You cannot push on a string. Doesn't exist. These are array-specific methods. Names, George John Thomas, let new length equal names.push James. Console.log names, console.log new length. We get George John Thomas James, and then we get 4. Push returns the length of the new array. And it pushes the element you pass into it onto the back. Okay? Memorize it, okay? The quicker you memorize how these things work, the easier solving problems is going to be, okay? Because push, not so much like unshift and shift, and maybe even pop. Well, okay, that's wrong. But like, push specifically, you're going to be using a lot, okay? So just realize that there's all these options you can do at the end and the beginning of arrays, okay? Any questions on push? Yeah.
Well, not push, but the previous slide. So does JavaScript return an
Yes.
error message, or when we try to mutate a simple type?
Like with the string before?
Yeah.
No, it just doesn't do anything.
No,
No complaints. It's not an error, you just can't do it. Any questions on push? Cool. So pop. Pop removes one element from the end of the array and it returns the removed element. So we have let Jefferson equal names.pop. Console.log names, we only see George John. And then we console.log Jefferson, and we see that it's Thomas. Any confusion?
Just that you kept using names.
George was
Oh, my bad. Sorry. Let names equal George, John, and Thomas. An array with 3 strings inside of it, okay? Then we say we're declaring a new variable, Jefferson, and we're setting it equal to names.pop and vote. Names.pop is a method, so it has to run, right? Names.pop takes the last thing off of this array, and it returns it, and we can store it in this variable. So that's why names is altered, because it's taking it off, and Jefferson has that variable stored, Thomas.
So Jefferson's Thomas.
Jefferson is Thomas.
It is confusing because
Because of
I would
Jefferson.
have, it would have made more sense if it was new names instead of Jefferson.
Yeah, that's right.
Like,
I
it
apologize.
just,
So you can't
We
put an
just do it, right?
argument into names.pop into that method?
I don't think it takes an argument, no. I mean, you can put whatever, well, you can put whatever you want into any function, but I don't think it's gonna do anything. Dot pop has one purpose, it is to take the last thing off of the array. I'm not sure if you can actually pass it arguments. Look it up on MDN. I think I posted it in Slack and it's pinned to the channel. Mozilla's documentation. You can Google all of these things.
Nothing.
When I try to find out a new method or something, like, oh, is this a method? You can go into Google and just do array.pop MDN, and it'll be always the first response, okay? And you can read all about it. They have examples, they have all the arguments, what they should be, and they have optional arguments as well, okay? I apologize for Jefferson. We don't have to look at that anymore. Just kidding, let's look at it some more, yeah? Now we have Washington over here. We got names.shift. Let names equal George John Thomas. Now let Washington equal names.shift. This is identical to the last slide, except it's on the other side of the array. Shift takes things off the front. Shift is taking off George. So everything else has to shift over an index. If this array had 1,000 things inside of it, all of those 1,000 things have to move one place over. Okay?
Does it matter if like anything's undefined, like that first
No,
index is?
no. Everything moves. Okay? So, and just like pop, we return that value, right? We return George inside of Washington. We capture it. We don't have to do that, right? We don't have to do let Washington equal names.shift. If you just write somewhere in your code names.shift, first thing is coming off, okay? However, that first thing that was there is gone, unless you put it into a variable. Okay? Okay?
and it's good forever.
And just like push, we have unshift.
Wait, sorry, quick question. If we don't put it into a variable, does it just disappear?
Well, yeah. Like if you just type the number 4 and you don't put it into a variable, the next line will have no knowledge of that 4, right? Because it's just not. We read line by line. We don't put it into like a place in memory, right?
Right.
So, unshift, just like push, puts things into the array. However, unlike push you push on the back, unshift unshifts to the front, okay? So now we have names, George John Thomas, and before George, we had King George III. So King George III is now in front of George, and just like push, it returns the new length of the array. Okay?
So unshift is the opposite of push,
Yep. Pop and shift are opposites.
and then shift and pop. Yeah.
You can also argue that
I think
push and pop
unshift
are
and shift,
yeah.
so it's just the name
Sh-
kind of.
Unshift and shift are opposites of each other,
Yeah.
but they operate on the beginning of the array. Push and pop are opposites of each other, but they operate on the back of the array. Okay? Push, you don't have to push, you don't have to pass one thing as well. You can separate things by commas and push 10 things at once, and they will all go in the order you put them in. Okay? That's not really that important, but just saying. Oh, I forgot to show you index of. I forgot because it's also a string method, and I shouldn't have to remind you guys how to use this. You can use this on arrays as well. Nice, right? However, instead of looking for characters, now we could look for entire things, right? We put the whole string George in here, we put the whole string Alexander in here, and we get a 0 and a -1. Why do we get the 0? Because George is at index 0 in the names array. Where is Alexander in the names array? Nowhere. So we get -1, just like strings, right? If that value is inside of the array, you get the index, the first index where it was found. If it's not there, we went through the whole array, not there, we get -1. Any questions on this? Yeah.
If there are two George, and I need the last one, can I just reverse them and then?
So, no. So you could if you wanted to, but let's say you wanted the last index. I'm pretty sure there is a function called last index of, a method called last index of. Like if you did, I think for strings too, right? If you did, let's say there was another 5 in here, right? Let's say I did console.log nums.last index of, I think that's what it is, 5. We get 5. But if we just did index of, we would get 4. So last index of is also a method. I think it's a string method too. And it returns, it's basically the same thing as index of, but index of goes from the beginning of the array and gives you the first index it finds. Last index of just starts at the back and gives you the first one it finds from the back. So you get the last index that way. Okay? This is another method.
Last.
Okay? So, let's go over the slice method real quick again. So slice, let names equal George John Thomas, and we get let one term precedence equal names.slice 1, 2. One term precedence, we get John, and names is still the same because slice returns a copy of the array, right? A different array, a new array, okay? And little review, 1 is the starting index, right? Which is inclusive. So as you can see, at index 1, we have John, right? We have John. So we include that into our results. We want this thing to stop at 2, at index 2. Index 2 is Thomas. The second argument, 2, is exclusive. We do not put that in a result, we just stop. Okay? So that's why we only have one thing. If you forget how slice works, just go open a REPL or something, like whatever, and do like console, and make a string like ABC and play around with the arguments, okay? And we'll refresh your memory, okay? So let names equal George John Thomas. Let names copy equal names.slice with nothing inside of it. Let names copy at 2 equals Paul. Names copy dot push Ringo. Names is still the same, George John Thomas. However, in names copy, we reassign index 2, Thomas, to be Paul. Then we pushed in Ringo. So we have presidents, and now we have the Beatles. Okay? And that's what the whole thing's about, right? If I didn't do this, if I just said let names copy equal names, both would be the Beatles. And I showed you that, right? Be careful about that. Be careful. Be careful. Okay. Oh, I forgot to show you includes as well. Includes is pretty straightforward though, so let names George John Thomas. Names dot includes the string George. We get true. Names dot includes the string Alexander. We get false. You can think of this as the same thing as index of, right? Index of returns anything, but any number that's 0 or more, or -1. So if it's -1, we know it's not in there. However, includes just gives you false or true, okay? Includes is not a string method, okay? This is specific for arrays.
Does it, oh, it's just like a Boolean answer?
Yeah, it's always a Boolean, always true or false if this thing that you pass into it is in the array or not. If it's in the array, you get true. If it's not in the array, you get false. Okay? Easy. And reverse, something even easier to understand. You dot reverse, and the whole thing is reversed. Let names equal George John Thomas. Names dot reverse, console.log names, Thomas John George. This is changing the array, okay? This is mutating the array. Names will never be the same. Okay?
So what was the one that only copies
The slice.
the slice?
Slice makes a copy. Yeah. So, on a recap, we did what's an array, type of, array.isArray, bracket access and bracket assignment, length property, and then some of those methods, right? Dot length we did, slice, index of, includes, push, pop, unshift, shift, reverse. Okay? Any final questions before you guys take a 5-minute break? Okay, I will slack out pairs a little bit before 8. Go take a break. Good job, everybody.